Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Silmarillion Film Project. My name is Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor, joined as always by Marie Prosser and Nick Palazzo from our writer's room. And today we've now finished episode 13. We finished the final episode last time of season 7, so we have now the full season planned, but there are a few odds and ends that we need to tidy up. So we have 2 more episodes. This is our penultimate episode here on season 7. And tonight we're going to talk about the frame. So we had decided the concept of the frame way back, which was the White Council at which the Rings of Power are discussed. So tonight we're going to look at that outline, how the frame story would work and think about its relationship to the main story. No, Meow, this is not the end. In fact, this is, the first season of the second half, isn't it? 12 seasons is what we'd mapped out, right? So, no, we are more than halfway done with the first age now. But yes, that's,
penultimate is in penultimate of this season.
Penultimate of this season. Yes, exactly. Penultimate season 7 episode. As we come towards the end, this is session number 30. So we've got, when did we start? More than a year ago? Much more than a year ago now. Yeah.
Yes, because
significantly more than a year ago.
Yeah,
the first episode was.
We had a script at Mythmoot last year. Yeah, right.
Right from episode 1. Yeah, so it's been a year and a half, I would say, probably.
Yeah. Yes. A good deal of time to be doing quite as much weeping as we have been doing during this season, and it will be such a relief to move on to Turin Turambar next season. But in the meantime, quick announcements. So we have completed our spring moot season. I was just in Denver this past weekend for Mountain Moot, which was lovely. And we are looking forward to the fall season, which will begin in Vancouver. My first trip to Vancouver, well, if a very brief stop through doesn't count. I've never really seen Vancouver. But anyway, excited to go and meet people in Vancouver for Cascade Moot, our 3rd Cascade Moot. We've been moving around. We started in Portland, and then we did Seattle, and now we're doing Vancouver. So we're kind of circulating around the Northwest with Cascade Moot. Then New England Moot on October 18th. But between those, we have Euro Moot, which is going to be a 3-day moot that we're holding in Cardiff, Wales on the weekend of October 3rd through 5th. So anyway, and there are more fall moots that are yet to be officially released, but which we are planning on. So there will be some fun things coming there. But in the meantime, we have the most fun of all planned at Mythmoot 12, which is just in a couple weeks now. In fact, 2 weeks from today, we will be in Leesburg, Virginia. We're going to have, as we often have, a pretty strong SilmFilm team presence at Mythmoot 12. And looking forward to, I think we're going to, have we decided? So it's become a tradition now at Mythmoot that we do a live action reading of a SilmFilm episode script. Yes. We did do episode 1 from season 7 last year, the Gondolin episode, featuring memorably our first stunt ever, in which I was proud to take part.
No one got hurt.
No one got hurt. But do we know what episode we're going to do yet?
We do have a plan.
Okay.
We do have a plan for Mythmoot. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
It involves, so what we decided to do was, instead of just doing one episode, we're going to do the entire season. No. We're doing a pastiche. That can't be the right word. We're following
montage.
We're following the Hurin and Morwen storyline all the way up through to the end of season 13.
good.
So
Well, and I'm glad that
17,
Ilana
yeah.
will be there to direct it.
yes,
So that's good.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, so we'll have parts of several episodes put
Mhm.
together to tell their story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because as you pointed out, graduating from yay our first stunt to let's put on this full episode of all battle at the end
Yeah.
of the season is maybe not some stuff
Yeah.
we're ready for
Episode
yet. So
well,
13
any of
is
the last
not
4 episodes would have been rather
Yeah.
challenging to try to do.
Yes, for sure.
and not doing the last 4 episodes would feel like we're not
Yeah.
presenting the season. So we
Yeah.
found a way to work some pieces together, and
Right.
hopefully
To give
it'll go over
a
well.
story that'll be satisfying, but yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We could have gotten away with like just doing the dialogue from say the last 4 episodes. I don't think that would have been as satisfying as this.
No, it would be hard because it'd be hard. You'd lose the context without.
You need the narration, a lot of narration in between to kind of fill in the gaps.
And it would be a very great deal of like abstract
sure.
description of the things. Yeah. Nope, I agree. I think that sounds like a very good plan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I look forward to Mythmoot as always, and encourage people to go to blackberry.signumuniversity.org, and you can find the registration on the events. In the events area, you can find the registration for Mythmoot. And not only can you join us in person for wonderful SilmFilm fun at in Leesburg, but of course you can also join remotely through our Moot Hub registration, where you'll get access to as much as we can possibly give you access to. And that should include the SilmFilm productions there as well. All right, so last distraction by the map of Beleriand. Well, I guess penultimate distraction by the map of Beleriand. But so let's talk about the concept that we came up with at the beginning of the year was the last meeting of the White Council as being a fairly, well, I won't say quite a direct parallel, but being intriguingly kind of analogous to the summit meeting that was happening at the middle of this season. So just as the primary sort of overall story of season 7 is, this sort of last attempt to bring everybody together to fight against the darkness, there's a sense in which that's the same thing that's happening at the White Council meeting as well. Okay, so I think that and chronologically it works, as we've been kind of loosely moving forward in time, not like regularly and not systematically, but we've been loosely working forward in time with our frame, narrative. So anyway, so here we are in the late Third Age at the last White Council meeting. Do you guys want to walk me through your thoughts about how these things kind of work together?
So the overall structure for the season is kind of a 3-act structure where the first 4 episodes set everything up, and then the middle 5 episodes develop the story, and then the last 4 episodes are a giant battle.
Right.
So the idea was to try to maybe break the frame into those acts as well, to kind of have different parts of it.
Yeah.
So the middle part of the frame is kind of analyzing all the different options they have of how to respond to Sauron coming back. And so each episode like does a different aspect of what they could do, and that's their council meeting.
Right.
The ending, of course, has to relate to the battle stuff and the day shall come again part, and this is the day, and whoops, no, this was not the day.
This is not the day.
and some treachery, like so I had to deal with all of that. And then the beginning part is just setting everything up the same way the main story is, I guess.
Yeah. No, that I can, and in the actual frame, we're talking about like different people on the road coming in to the council meeting, right? So the White Council meeting itself is happening there in the middle. And so that seems to work. That makes perfect sense. There's so many things. So let me first of all acknowledge the challenge here to like making a good story of the White Council meeting. Because frankly, I feel like this is a challenge that Tolkien himself did not succeed very well. I still feel, I've always felt that his description of like the confrontation between Gandalf and Saruman at the White Council meeting that he included that was included in Unfinished Tales is like very dubious. Like I have a really hard time with it because
it seems like it was written down well after the fact.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it like, I can't like, basically it's like I'm reading it. I'm like, I can't imagine the last White Council meeting could possibly have gone that way, because it's not only is it not consistent with the things that Gandalf says in chapter 2 of the Fellowship of the Ring, really at all. But it also is, it's just like, it's too much. Like there's Gandalf's suspicions about Saruman are too pointed for him possibly to not have caught on about Sauron, to him possibly to be surprised about Saruman's treachery. Sorry.
Right. This season could very easily have slipped into a bit of what I like to call season 2 frame-itis. Right. Where you have to create these like very, very tiny incremental changes in a person's perspective over
because
the course
you only
of an
get
entire
like
season.
one short scene to do it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that, and you can't have a bomb dropped every episode because they can't, because then you have nowhere to go.
Right.
You run out of room. And the benefit of having a bunch of characters here made that significantly easier to deal with, to be able to kind of switch the POV on occasion.
Right. Yeah.
While remaining mostly, I think Elrond focused, if I remember.
Yeah,
Elrond
he did seem to be the through line.
Who we follow through the season, and he would be in the most episodes compared to some of the other characters. And he's in both the first and the last one. So we get the impression that this is Elrond's experience of the White Council meeting, not specifically Gandalf's take on it or Saruman's take on it. Like they're both there. Galadriel, they're all there, but that we're getting Elrond's perspective.
Yeah. And Elrond's perspective is most likely the one that we would get.
Right.
If we, you know.
Yes.
If it were written out blow by blow like this.
Agreed. By the way, there was a funny irony, like to me personally, because literally earlier today, I had one of those random moments, which don't happen very frequently, but happen occasionally, when my wife suddenly introduced a Tolkien question into our conversation. And so we were having a discussion about Elrond and Galadriel. And her question was, her out of nowhere question to me was, if Sauron had gotten the ring, who do you think would have lasted longer against Sauron, Galadriel or Elrond? Which I thought was a really interesting question. But I misunderstood it at first, because by lasted longer, I at first thought she meant like held out best against the will of Sauron, in which case I was like, Elrond, hands down. Like Galadriel is like on the raggedy edge already, right? Like it takes too much to push Galadriel over if it comes to it.
She meant
fighting,
defend their territory.
Yes, exactly. Like
so the answer to that question is, well, who does Sauron go after first?
Right? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Lothlorien is on the way to Imladris, so it's not looking good for Lothlorien.
Right? Yeah, exactly. She has the disadvantage of proximity, but But anyway, she was maintaining that she thought that like Galadriel would like be tougher for Sauron to defeat than Elrond would, and I agreed. At which point we then got into this like sub discussion about Elrond and how passive he is. You know, she's like, he is so passive. He doesn't do anything at all. And I'm like, so on the one hand, I don't totally agree with that statement, but on the other hand, it would be a very hard statement to disprove.
So you know what it is that he learned from Gil-galad, who learned from SilmFilm Oradreth is what it is.
Exactly, clearly.
Well,
But anyway, the point was, I mean, I was, I was agreeing with her that Elrond is never described as like doing stuff. He like is, I mean, anyway, so we just had this discussion where like, oh, Elrond, he's so passive, and then I read the outline like it was seriously 30 minutes later, and it was like Elrond is like, we must take action, and I'm like, all right, there we go. There we go, argument disproved.
well, I will say the one thing that we know Elrond did of his own initiative was found Imladris.
Right.
Yes, so
Yeah.
like that is his very active personal choice. He did a lot of other things that were in support of other people's actions.
Right. Though, like, to
So
say that
he is much more of a support role.
Right.
I agree.
To say that hiding is his active role, though, is already kind of to prove the point. Right? I mean, it's again, this is not a criticism of Elrond, by the way, but it's just
it's his go-to move.
It's his go-to move.
Your time
Yeah,
until they're right.
Yeah, and again, not in any way attributing weakness or anything. Just say like his role in the stories is always to be the one who is there, right? Not the one who is leading the charge, not the one who is doing things.
Although, I mean, the Last Alliance, where were people
He was
hanging out,
there.
waiting and planning that? No, he wasn't just there, though. Like, Rivendell was part of the, hey, you guys, we should totally have a Last Alliance.
Right.
So, while it's true that he was not the leader, he was not Gil-galad, he was not Elendil,
Right. Yeah.
how much of it happening
He was there.
because of Elrond? Like, his role is very involved.
I agree. No, but anyway, as I said, I was just laughing really hard at the fact that he was the voice for like action and everything.
Yeah. By the end, he's not. It goes away really quick.
It's a passing phase. Elrond is so prone to those things. He's so changeable. Yeah. No, anyway, it was good.
You also get the feeling in the Lord of the Rings that he's almost like he's almost kind of like playing a Stephen Strange like role, where he's like, if I tell you what happens, it won't happen.
Right.
Like if I press too hard on the levers here, it's gonna go the wrong way.
Yeah. I certainly get the sense at the Council of Elrond.
Yeah.
That the Council of Elrond went exactly as he meant it to go, but he was leaving it to go that way on its own. Right. That, his words to Frodo are sort of like, I'm glad to see that I don't actually have to, volunteer you, Frodo, but like, so thank you for that. Like, that's great,
Right.
But yeah, this did in fact go precisely according to script. Also, by the way, I think that from now on, every single time we have Círdan involved in a discussion, we need to have him say, I think the thing to do is make ships.
Right.
Because that was my other favorite part of the council, is that like Círdan the shipwright suggests making ships, and I'm like, well, like the when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, saying kind of came into mind. It's like, it is Círdan's solution for everything. let's make more ships.
Yeah.
Which again, no harm in it, right? Like it's a perfectly respectable job.
Right.
Well, and also we have portrayed Círdan as somebody who thinks that it's his entire mission and purpose in life to bring the elves from Middle-earth to Valinor.
Yes.
When that needs to happen. So he is approaching this of, is now a good time? Because I can totally build some ships, you guys.
We can make this happen.
Right. So it's part of what we wanted to make sure was happening throughout the council is that the wise are considering, wait, is now the time to do the thing that we know needs to happen at some point.
Right.
So Círdan's like, should I be building ships? And Elrond's like, should we be going to war? Like, Gandalf's like, should we figure out who's actually running Gondor and Rohan right now?
Right.
Like, there's some tension of timing, and the council goes nowhere. No one does anything.
Right.
But they talk about it. They're so we get to see what they're thinking is gonna happen or needs to happen. Like, what do they think is the thing that has to be done?
Right.
Is what's coming out of this. Saruman's like, I need to find the One Ring.
Right. Well, so big picture, here's what I love about this frame and the way that this all works in exactly that way. So, like in the first age, there is no clear good path forward, right? Like, how do we defeat Morgoth? How do we overthrow Morgoth? And, like, no
good
plans,
question.
right? Like, there's no clear path to that. And in fact, just as, we were trying to show throughout the season that there was at least a chance that if things had fallen differently, it could possibly have worked. The Union of Maedhros is not the solution, but like, it's also hard to think of a better solution than the Union of Maedhros, right? But there is this, but its failure at the end seems to communicate fairly clearly. And this is something, by the way, I think we should have some people like actually explicitly wrestling with during season 8, like in the aftermath, and thinking it through. It's like, basically, okay, if that didn't work,
now what?
Like, not only what will, in the sense of like, now what resources do we have left, but even like more like ontologically, like, are we supposed to? Like, is this
right?
Are we, is somebody telling us that like defeating, like, because it seems like defeating evil is the obvious right thing to try to do, right? Yeah. Are we not supposed to try to do that? Like, and if we are supposed to try to do that, how on earth are we supposed to try to do that now? Right? Like, so those are real questions.
It's right. Like, if you're stuck in a war of attrition, you're like, I'm the good guys and they're the bad guys. How long do you keep fighting it? Till everybody dies? Like, maybe. Right. But is there another option?
Is there another
option? Should at least be like coming to mind and be something you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And these characters are leading whole countries of people who are suffering the consequences of this loss after the war. Like, they're gonna have to find out what they're doing.
Yeah.
And surely someone's gonna be like, we could get out of here and just leave. That would be an option.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, so exactly. So and so then this then brings me back to the White Council, right? Because the White Council is most obviously parallel to the Council of Elrond, right? Let us figure out what to do, except with the one difference, right? That is, the ring hasn't been found. The strange chance has not been given to them, right?
Two differences. One is, they don't have the One Ring. Second is, Saruman's not there.
Saruman's not there, right? Yes.
That's a key difference.
It's true. It's much better to do it without the chair of the White Council, in fact. Yes, that's true. But anyway, so I feel like, to some extent, our treatment of the last White Council meeting has to kind of look in both directions, right? Look back towards Beleriand and the actual season, right? To sort of show some parallels there, because there are parallels there, right? Sauron has risen again. Now what? What can we possibly do? Like, what are the options? And of course, in the Council of Elrond, Gandalf and Elrond are busily involved in trying to show everybody that every other possible option is helpless and hopeless, right? We can't do anything, right? Can we fight? No. Can we flee? No. Can we hide the ring? No. Can we throw it away? No. Can we, they only leave the one, they only perceive the one opening.
Right.
But before that opening is available, before they know about it. So basically, this is the Council of Elrond discussion without the ring. What can we do? What can we do? And again, so in many ways, their situation is very similar to the Beleriand situation, right? Like, clearly fighting against evil is the thing to do. Well, what can we do? We don't have the resources anymore. We can't do Last Alliance Part 2 necessarily, though again, they'll talk about that. Running away doesn't seem like quite the right thing. You know, anyway, like it's what are the options? Providence hasn't delivered to them the option, right? The unexpected, the fool's hope yet. And so without it, there's this kind of sense of there's a sort of futility to it, which is really interesting and really compelling when you put it next to the Council of Elrond, and really interesting when you put it next to the situation in Beleriand at the time of the Union of Maedhros as well. But of course, the challenge is futility doesn't make really great theater, however. So having that story kind of itself be the frame story, be in some sense a satisfying story, seems really challenging with this one.
So obviously what Tolkien does a really good job of is convincing the reader that everything is definitely for sure hopeless.
Right.
But the characters should hold on to hope in this situation somehow.
Right.
Like that whole, there's always this like glimpse of, you know, the beauty and the light that's beyond the touch of the evil. So like there's always something, and he can paint some pretty bleak pictures, and yet there's still that hope. So while we're not presenting here's the answer, we do have to present here's our source of hope. We don't have the answer,
pure
but we still have.
Yeah.
Yes. So there has to be a pretty explicit statement of Estelle.
Yeah.
Both in the main story with Huor's conversation with Turgon, you know, from you and from me, and New Star Shall Arise.
Yeah.
Right.
Is the answer to the question of what do you do about Morgoth after this defeat?
Right.
And Elrond's conversation with Aragorn in the frame at the end is the same.
Right.
Like, we don't have the answer. We don't know what we're going to do, but the answer will come. Like, we are going to do something.
Right.
Like this is not where we're leaving this.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But I agree that that's not necessarily as compelling as, and here's the answer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, there has to be no answer. I mean, the last White Council meeting has to end inconclusively. Right. But I agree, that note of Estelle, and of course, hope has been the overall theme that we decided from the beginning to be the overall theme of this season. And it is, I think, by the way, it's been an awesome theme. I think that has been, you know, the kind of counterintuitive choice in some ways of hope as the theme of the Nir Ninth Arnoediad season. I think has been excellent. And I think it allows for, and again, if we do them right, both the main story itself and the frame story do kind of illustrate the failure of Amdir, but the persistence of Estelle, essentially.
Yes. Yes. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah. 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 Cool. All right. Well, let's look in a little bit more detail. So here's Act 1. We get in episode 1, the convening of the White. So this is so help me remember. Episode 1, this is the Gondolin episode. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the boys in Gondolin in episode 1. And the frame for that is the convening of the White Council, Glorfindel and Elrond traveling to Eregion. Aragorn is destined to be the enemy of Sauron, but being mortal, he has limited time. So this is where, like, the conversation with Aragorn is grown now. He's leading the Rangers. And the discussion is like, your time is at hand, right? But the time is at hand. That's about, like, you know, you are full grown now, and B, mortal and won't live forever. So C, if you're going to do anything, it's like sooner is better than later, right? To get anything done. Not your hours at hand in the sense of, like, the moment has arrived.
Right. No sign or
right.
like evidence of now's the time to do something has happened. It's just there's a short window here. So
Yes.
Yeah.
and that's
And
similar to what Hurin and Turgon are discussing in Gondolin.
Yes.
and that conversation, I believe that that encompasses that takes place without Aragorn himself there. That's a conversation between Elrond and Glorfindel, who was there
Talking about Aragorn. Yeah, right.
right
Who's right.
now. Aragorn was present in the
Okay.
tag at the beginning of the
Right.
episode, but
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So we see Aragorn on screen, and then Glorfindel and Elrond talk about him.
Right.
right.
So Glorfindel is right. The one who he was in the frame, and he's in the main episode also.
Yes.
Right.
He's the
Yeah.
connective tissue
Yes.
there. Yeah.
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 Yes. So when Glorfindel talks about like, yes, mortal times are short, and they must be left free to they must seize the day to accomplish what they need to accomplish. He's directly
He
echoing
remembers this exact thing that
what
happened in
Hurin
his
was
life.
said in
Yeah.
the main episode. Right. That's kind of lovely. Okay. All right. Good. And by the way, how do we propose to handle Aragorn and Arwen in this?
Yeah, they're both there.
They're both there.
We keep them more or less
We keep them
separate,
separate?
though.
Yeah.
Like Aragorn is part of the security contingent.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're like patrolling in the area to make sure that nobody finds out that there's one council happening here in the middle
Right.
of nowhere.
Right.
Right. And Arwen is part of Elrond's posse, essentially.
Right.
in
But
the
no
councils.
The
glances.
right.
No
No,
understanding.
well,
There's
Not
at
on
least
her-
one scene where they do talk, isn't there?
Well, she goes and talks to her brothers in one scene.
Yes. So
it's
correct.
possible that her brothers are with Aragorn, or at least, were just with him a minute ago, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They're in the same place. So she does have the opportunity to walk past him in that scene. And what she's talking to her brothers about is like, hey, it seems like Dad's not really going to do anything. Do you want to like talk him into doing something like fighting or whatever?
Right.
So that conversation, she could certainly reference the Rangers if she's trying to.
No, it's okay. I'm just,
talk about
it just
doing
seems
something.
like an obvious kind of elephant in the room, having Aragorn
Yes.
and Arwen. And we just did the Baron and Luthien thing, right,
Yes.
with them last season. So, following up from
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, they said their goodbyes.
they said their goodbyes
At
and
the-
we're,
So
yeah.
we're not advancing their story at all.
Okay.
If Aragorn sees her, we should see that he definitely still sees her.
right.
Right? Like he's
Yeah.
not like pretending she doesn't exist or whatever.
Right. Yes. Okay. All right. So that was my question. Like if
And she does talk to Galadriel about him. Oh, again, obliquely.
Yeah.
Like they're talking about men in general,
Yeah.
not this one guy that I met in particular.
right. Yes. Yeah. I remember that scene as well. Okay. We could pause for a second to glance ahead. Surely we have to do Karen Emroth as a frame at some point, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the engagement between Arwen Aragorn and Karen
Yes.
Emroth, that seems to be like exactly the kind of third age, during this time period episode that we would include in a frame. Do we have any idea? Do we have any like a good candidate?
We had talked about doing it at the end of the first age.
Does that happen before, or if that happens before the Thorin Guild stuff, or after? After.
Yeah. So there's a few isures with when things fall as to how we're going to do frame stories.
Yeah, it can't be too soon because we got all of Thorongil before that.
Right. And then there was the question of whether we were going to do the Thorongil storyline as part of a frame, a whole frame, or a season in
Like
itself.
later on,
Yeah. And if it's going to be a season later on that we like set aside time for, then the frame story can't get past that.
Yeah.
So we will have to discuss at some point what time frames are still available for our frame.
Right.
And maybe we need to go hang out with hobbits a bit more. in the frames,
Right.
and leave Aragorn and Arwen alone for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Which,
we've got 5 frames left in the first age, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and there should be plenty of options. By the way, another cool candidate would be Balin's company in Khazad-dûm.
Right.
Yep.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be a good one because we don't have to follow them in real time during the Third Age.
Right.
Unless you want to make it absolutely clear that by the way, there is a Balrog in Khazad-dûm when the Fellowship is going through there.
Right.
Just so you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously we have to consider, what do we know what happens to Bond's company at the end of that frame?
Yeah.
Or is it just like they're in Moria? Let's leave them there and hope all goes well for them.
It would be, I don't know. I think Balin's company would be fun.
Yeah.
So but we do have some constraints if we stick to our up to this point
and chronological
pattern
order.
Every time we have a new frame, it's later. And we never step back in time in the frame because of how much time first age, third age we've been doing with the frame. It was like, let's at least keep it chronological.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It would be, I feel like we're getting to a point where for next season, I mean, when we're thinking about this, we should probably make an outline, like try to, because we don't want to paint ourselves into a corner. So yeah, actually coming up with something like an exhaustive list would probably be good. Yeah.
But to answer your original question, do we want to show their engagement in Karen Amarth? Of course we do.
Yeah. And
the question is just how.
And I feel like the Aragorn and Arwen story is better in anecdotes anyway. Like I can't imagine a whole like Aragorn and Arwen season,
No.
Like that doesn't feel exactly right. And the reason I feel like it could is that if we did do that, I'd want to change the story. Like I think Tolkien would have wanted to change the story if he'd thought of Arwen a year earlier than he did, right? But like he didn't think of the Arwen, Aragorn and Arwen story until the thing was like in proofs practically. So like he didn't do much with it. But I mean, I still maintain like there is no chance that had he had the idea of having a Luthien parallel in the story, would he have left her at home the whole time sewing a banner, right? Like, anyway.
Yeah, obviously he let Luthien go do a few things. And so like the argument of like, well, no, that's just, what elves are like. It's like, have you met his first age elves?
Yes, exactly.
This is not what elves are like.
It's not what elves are like. Yeah, exactly. So,
to be fair, Elrond didn't lock Arwen in a tree.
No.
Which may have played a role. Just saying.
I would say
are you suggesting a mutual agreement between like if you agree not to run off after Aragorn, I'll agree not to lock you in a tree?
Or maybe he just wasn't that kind of father.
Sure.
So
I was going to say, Elrond and
so she trusted him a little bit better. And also, while yes, saying yes, you before you may marry my daughter, you must defeat Sauron, is a big ask. I don't feel it's actually on the scale of you must cut a Silmaril from the crown of the devil.
No, it's not. Not a cunning counsel to get him killed, right?
No,
clearly,
no.
Again, it's I see this as your destiny. You should probably go do that thing.
Right, exactly.
Like Elrond is paying attention to getting things done. He's just not personally going and doing them.
Exactly.
He's a good delegator.
Yep. Well,
that's what they call
that. Reclaim the throne of Gondor, then come talk.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just normal things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so we don't have to obviously have the entire frame brainstorming discussion right now. It was just, again,
But we should have one.
we should have one. And it just occurred to me, yes, when I was thinking over the frame, it just occurred to me as like the Arwen and Aragorn thing, like, to what extent are we going to, I think it's good. Like, I think it's good to kind of diffuse, not to lay it on too thick, right? To, to make it sound like, because their story does not move fast. So, we have to resist any temptation to make it look like it's moving along fast.
Basically, we get very little from Aragorn in this frame. We do get more from Arwen. And the two conversations we do have with Aragorn, it's him and Elrond talking. Mm-hmm. So, if anything, all we've established is that he does not resent Elrond for saying, so you know what you need to do.
Right.
Like, he's still on board with that plan. He thinks that's what he should be doing with his life.
Right.
And they are, like, planning together what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And Elrond is respecting Aragorn's decisions. And, like, if Aragorn says now is not the time, Elrond's like, yeah, you're right. Like, you're grown, but you're not that grown.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So episode 2 in SilmFilm is, that's really kind of the beginning of the Union of Maedhros thing, right? Is that the one where he comes to, no, that's not the one where he comes to Dorloman. That's 3?
No. 4 and 5. But in episode 2, all that's happening is Maedhros is wrangling Fëanorians in the east.
Yeah.
And Húrin and Huor have arrived back in Dorloman in the west. So it's the beginning of the season and everything is being set into motion.
Right.
But nothing in particular happens. I mean, episode 2 is mostly a bunch of people talking to each other.
Well, like the unexpected and long lost return of Húrin and Huor is fairly exciting, but
that's it. I mean,
that's it.
That is the exciting thing, and it happens at the very beginning. Of the episode.
Right.
Possibly at the end of the previous episode.
Right.
Like,
Right. Okay. So within the context of the frame, we have Gandalf and Saruman.
Yes. So if we started with Elrond, it was important to move into somebody else who's arrived for this council meeting and to get their perspectives. So we wanted to set them up as fairly antagonistic towards each other in the sense of clearly they came to this meeting with different ideas. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to establish that starting point.
Not in the sense of one was trying to, say, overpower the other politically.
Right.
No, nothing like that. More just the...
Yeah.
So this is what we should do, right? Well, no, I think we should think about that a little bit more. Like that level of like, I'm not on board with this idea. It's not like, all right, you and me, let's get together and make this happen. It's clearly not where they are. So
they're disagreeing.
Just yes, different viewpoints.
Yeah. And so here, in this frame, we're establishing essentially that they're bringing different viewpoints to the council.
Yes. Saruman has never appeared in SilmFilm before in the frame, like in the Third Age, right? Mm-hmm. He's only appeared in season 1 as Amaya.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Or
Kurama.
Yeah. Kurama. I was like, before that even. Right. Yeah. Like Morgoth is still going by Melkor at the time.
Right.
The Sauron is still Myron. Yeah. So we haven't seen him before. We don't know who he is, and this is his chance to speak.
And Gandalf and Saruman are arriving together.
I think at the same
we
time
see them together.
We see them together. Okay, but they're getting there. So this is them pre-gaming before the council meets, but it's in irregular.
Yeah, they're already there.
They're on. Yeah, so they're on site. They're chatting with each other, but it's not like during the council.
Right. Okay. Cool. And the perspectives that we're showing Saruman is the let's not be hasty angle, right? Gandalf is agitating
of the two of them, Gandalf's more of a hothead than anyone in the Council of the Wise. Right. So he's going to come across as, all right, guys, let's do this thing. And everyone's like, what are you doing? We haven't even. Yeah.
We haven't even sat around
So
for a few
that's
centuries talking about this.
Right. Right.
yes, yes. So that was the idea, was to show that contrast in personality and approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But Saruman's not saying like you're wrong or that's a terrible idea. He's simply like, I'm not on board with
Right.
anything you just said yet.
Wisely urging caution and looking like the
Right.
level-headed one, and yeah.
Right. Yeah. There shouldn't be any clear signs that Saruman is a villain who's out to like warp and distort what's happening. Like we weren't going for that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay. So episode 3 is Hurin. Is that the death of Galdor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the skirmish in Mithrim.
Yeah.
The death of Galdor, and yeah.
Okay, so Hurin's like impatience for action is complicated within episode 3 by the skirmish that leads to the death of its father.
Yes.
Okay. Meanwhile, in the frame, we get Elrond and company. Everyone's arrived. And so here we're focusing on Elrond and Celeborn, discussing the White Council meeting and reflecting on their memories of Eregion.
Yes. The idea of why are we having this meeting in this ruined place? This is weird. We wanted to like actually have that conversation on screen because the audience has no idea what Eregion is.
Right.
We've never seen it before. It's brand new. We need to explicitly tell them enough history that they can understand why we chose this place.
Yes.
And with Tolsirian, it's going to be different. As soon as we come back and see the Tumbled Tower, like we saw that happen. We know what that is.
Yes.
In the main story. So this is a chance to give a little history lesson in the frame for no good reason other than to set the stage.
To set the stage for that. Right. Right.
And to explain that Celeborn has some baggage about history. And that and Elrond as well, what this place means to him. Like it's that is going to be relevant in their discussions. I was being a little flippant about the setting the stage part.
Right. And it also seems to me like, again, in the context of talking about the history, I mean, Eregion stands as a monument to like what Sauron does to people who, you know, from whom he can profit and then who stand in his way, right? Like both sides. Like it's you know, it's a monument both to Sauron's cunning and to Sauron's power.
Right. The whole we need to get this right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Message should be coming out of this.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're going to end the episode with the death of a named character, it would be nice to be talking about things that are somber and serious when you go back to the frame.
Right. Meanwhile, back at the frame, the big party is starting. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Like, nah, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So we wanted to, so a nice somber
to match the tone.
at the end there.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, and then episode 4, the end of the first act. That's when the Feanorians arrive. That's when Mithras arrives.
This is Hurin and Morwen getting married, and Fingon and Mithras forming a union.
Okay, right. Yeah. Right.
One of those is political and one of those is romantic. I'll let you figure out which is which.
Although that's a fascinating discussion prompt, actually. Okay. Openness and trust. Galadriel and Arwen discuss the choices again. This, of course, is a reference back to season 2 frame, right, where Arwen was trying to figure out the theme of season 2, which was Elvenhome, right? Where do elves belong? What's the point of elves? Galadriel was surprised that Arwen's view has changed. Arwen explains that the Dunedain have given her a different perspective. There's more to them than she knew. So this obviously connecting back to the season 6 frame and her conversation with Aragorn. But so this one is the one where we are touching on the Arwen Aragorn story most directly. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So the last time Galadriel saw Arwen, obviously when she was in Lothlorien and right before she left to go back to Rivendell,
Right.
they already knew Sauron was back.
Yeah.
Right.
So Arwen was already started to ask the question of like, so do we just gather up all the elves and leave now? Like
Right.
that seems to be the thing you should do before he comes and burns down your forest.
Right.
You're like, we should probably get on that. So that was the last Galadriel heard from her. And Galadriel was like, that might not be the answer right now, Arwen. Like, there's more to this, and
Right.
that's not how we, yeah. Like, there is a hope that you're not seeing.
Right.
And then now Arwen's like, yeah, there's hope that I didn't see before. And Galadriel's just like, where did this come from? Like, you left 2 minutes ago.
Exactly right. That was yeah. You've been gone for 5 minutes and suddenly your mind has changed. That doesn't happen to elves, right? Like what on earth? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's some of the disconnect there, and then needing to reconnect and get back on the same page of what they think now. So we're not going to hopefully recap season 6 in the
right
in this frame, but
right
to at least let Arwen articulate what she took away from the season 6 frame.
Yeah. Which is also, I mean, as we were discussing last season, a clearer sense, a clearer vision for herself of what it means to be the even star of her people, right? At least like a clearer and different vision for that.
Right. Not the round them all up and put them on ships, but somehow there's going to be hope, and I'm going to be the, touchstone for that.
Yeah. Even if she doesn't show it on screen, Galadriel must have some shrewd guesses. I mean, like, she must see some significance to this sudden change in Arwen, right?
I would think so, because Galadriel's a bit insightful. However, when Aragorn does show up in Lothlorien and Galadriel's like, I know what my role is right now, she is not operating under the assumption that Arwen already fell for this guy.
Yeah.
She's like, I need to dress him up like an elf if I'm going to send him to go talk to her, like, so that she sees him for like what's here. So at this point, Arwen has met him, but he's a 20-year-old human kid to her. Like, she's not that. I mean, she's impressed, but it's pretty intellectual right now.
Right.
Like, she's considering the ramifications. She's not like, oh, I want to hang out with him more.
Right.
Like, like there's not a personal side to it, which pairs not terribly with the Herwin Marwyn story, where they're not wanting to spend all their time together. They're not like,
they're doing politics
happy
still,
to see each other. It's like, okay, if we make this decision, this will be good for us. This will be good for our people. This is the right thing to do. Let's move forward with this.
Yeah.
That's not a, like, it's not quite the same place that you usually expect people to be right before they're getting married.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yep. Makes sense. Okay, good. And so that brings us then up to, we're coming up to the summit meeting in the main story. And so now we're coming up to the council as well. So episode 5, episode 5, isn't 6 the beginning of the, or is 5 the
no 5 is Sutherdine, and then
right, that's Galadriel arriving in Bree. Right.
And so in Dorloman we do have Fingin and Mithras visit and get everybody on board for, well, get her on board for the, hey, we're going to do a thing to plan the council. So like the council is in planning stages in 5.
Right.
But we don't go there until 6. Because the focus of the episode was out east.
Okay. And so the thought was to bring up, to do the Rings of Power discussion here. Okay. Do we do the whole thing? Gandalf bringing it up, and I assume Gandalf brings it up as he's the one who's got some questions. Oh dear. time.
Yeah, so the idea is that in the Council of Elrond, it's I see some elf lords here. Won't anyone tell me about these rings?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right, like the putting it on the table. And the idea is that no one at this meeting needs to ask like that, right? So it's going to be a lot more subtle. So when we were discussing it in the script discussion, it was like, okay, who really wants to know?
Mm.
And the idea was that Gandalf has one of the rings. So if the question is, did Sauron get the One Ring back? Gandalf would kind of know, right?
Mm.
Like he would be aware because he's got a ring on his finger that would like start doing things if Sauron picked up the ring.
Right.
So the person who's at the council who doesn't know
5 signs
but
that the master ring might now be on the hands. So,
Yes.
symptoms to be
Right,
concerned
right.
about, right? You know, consult
Right,
the
right.
White Council
And
if, yes.
Yes.
yeah. And so the one person who's there who definitely knows how these rings work, but doesn't currently have one on their hand is Círdan.
Mm.
So we were thinking maybe Círdan would be the one to, in a roundabout way, just bring up the like, so what do we think is going on with that thing that we can't talk about?
Right.
Sort of because he needs to just check in with all these people who he knows who has the rings.
Right.
Everyone at the council knows who has the rings, but he would want to get their input since that's no longer him.
Right. Does Saruman think that Círdan has a ring still?
Saruman knows that Círdan gave the ring to Gandalf. The question is, when did Saruman figure that out?
Right.
Because Saruman's mad about that, right?
Right.
He's mad that Círdan didn't give him a ring when he got there on the boat.
Right.
Man, by the way, this is in my like top 5 list of like most difficult to handle passages within the Lord of the Rings itself.
Mhm.
Is the giving of the ring to Gandalf. Like, even Tolkien didn't attempt that retcon, you know, like actually working out how Gandalf could possibly have had the ring through the whole time. Like, for instance, why doesn't Saruman try to take it from him in Orthanc? Like,
Right.
why would he not do that? How? Like,
there does seem to be something about the non-ring bearers not being able to see the rings, except for the one ring which everybody seems to be able to see.
because it hasn't been claimed, presumably.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, probably if like Nenya or Narya were just like kicking around or like being held on a chain, you could probably see it.
Right. Right.
But when it's
When she's wearing
in
it,
use,
yeah,
yeah.
Fair enough.
yeah.
So
Wait, is that why? Oh, no. He puts it on his finger and nothing happens. Tom puts the ring on his finger and nothing happens. I knew that he made it disappear, but for a second, I was like, wait, did it disappear when he put it on his finger? Because
No,
that
but
would have been a cool way to signal that.
That's a fun kind of counterpoint to that, isn't it? Right? Like,
Yeah.
well, Tom
Galadriel
wasn't
wears her
wearing the
ring and it's invisible. Tom Bombadil just like tosses it up in the air and like does a disappearing trick with it, which is almost like a parody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not trying to like suggest we need to solve, we need to like perform the retcon that Tolkien didn't perform, but like, I'm just saying like, I have a really hard time with it.
Clearly a lot to how these rings work that he never told us and probably never figured out himself.
Yeah,
Like,
for 100%.
it's a magic ring.
Yeah.
It does what you need it to do in the magic cases.
100%
And that's pretty
for
much
sure. Yeah.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree that Gandalf having it in situations where it could have potentially been taken from him because he's been a prisoner multiple times
Yes.
Right.
since he got the ring.
Yes. And I mean the date. So Gandalf is already having his doubts about the One Ring. And I mean, so I think Gandalf comes to this council meeting with like serious questions. Like this is why I would have Gandalf bring it up, just because he's like, okay, like we've never really worked this out. Like, what totally did happen to the One Ring? Like, what are the options here?
Right. Like,
because
he
he's
would know
asking that question already because of Bilbo.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that he's far enough along. Well, okay. The same way you were saying that it makes no sense for Gandalf to have been thinking the things that he was supposed to have been thinking at this White Council meeting.
Yeah.
In Shadow of the Past, he's like, and, Bilbo had one of the great rings, as it plainly was.
Right.
It's only plain in that moment when he says it. It wasn't plain.
It was
for
not
the
plain at the
17
time.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for 80 years, he has no idea what's going on. And then suddenly he's like, wait a minute.
Well, I've just been writing like my book chapters about this whole passage. So I've been thinking about this a lot. And, but it is clear, like, the chronology of what he says, of what Gandalf's own story is, it makes sense. And it makes sense that he is asking, like, he's concerned. Like, it's not that the idea that Bilbo's ring could be the One Ring never occurred to him. It's just that it seemed like really unlikely. It's not like it's like the first thing he should obviously suspect by any stretch. But that Saruman's words at the council convinced him for decades.
That was the thing we wanted to come up with. It didn't matter who asked the question. It matters how Saruman answered.
Yes.
Right.
And we decided that he had to answer in a way that was so definitive.
Yes.
That Gandalf
and that's
would never
exactly what Gandalf describes.
Right. And so what we came up with, or at some point, and I say we, like, I don't remember which conversation this was, so
yeah.
It was on this podcast or in the script discussion, I don't recall, was the idea that Saruman would insinuate that the reason he knows this is he received it in a message from the West.
Yeah. I think
that way,
that's almost implied.
No one can question his authority.
Yes.
Because it's not his authority. It's a higher authority. But you have to be really careful with that and not overstate your hand too much.
Yeah.
As to who told you and how you know, because, like, presumably it's like it was a dream.
Right.
And Gandalf would be like, "Ooh, I know about dreams. Tell me more."
Yeah.
And it's like he can't keep talking about it. He has to strongly imply and then shut up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's really clear that Saruman is both, like, absolutely pushing all his chips into the center of the table at that moment, right? Like, he's gambling everything on that, using every ounce of, like, respect that he has earned, and also banking on the fact that they would take that they would accept even a vague insinuation that he has received a clear message about this.
And it's probably the first time he's outright lied to them.
Yes.
Whereas
it's not something he would do lightly in any way, especially in that room, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's probably been omissions and things he's kept to himself and things he's stated in funny ways over the years. But this, claiming to know something that he doesn't know and doesn't even believe, is a lie.
It's a lie. Yeah, exactly. And that is, yes, exactly. It's his huge gambit, right? And it works. Like, it works. None of them suspect him. And none of them suspect him, such that they're all still shocked. Even Gandalf himself, right, who walks into Orthanc because he doesn't suspect Saruman. And yet, and also his own fears about the ring are, like, he is convinced enough that for decades he's like, well, at least I know for sure it can't possibly be the One Ring. So I'll just wait and see what happens with Bilbo. Right. And it's only when, Maria, as you're pointing out, as it becomes clearer and clearer, well, crap, this is one of the great rings because it's giving him long life. Right. That's when, according to his own account, that he's like, okay, hang on a second. I can do process of elimination. And if it can't possibly be the one, as Saruman says, but it has to be one of the great rings. Like, what?
And there's not another. There's no other great ring without a gem on it.
No, exactly.
This is the only one.
This is the only possibility, which leads him to, and this is exactly why, Maria, I talked about this a lot in Exploring the Lord of the Rings, but
I'm sure you have.
This is exactly why it's such a big deal for Gandalf. And, so many people say, like, why didn't Gandalf say something about this sooner? Why didn't he act sooner? It's like, do you realize what a big deal it would be for him to, like, force himself to the conclusion Saruman either lied or is just wrong, like flat, completely, utterly wrong. Like both of those two things are almost inconceivable. And, almost any other like weird, unexpected explanation. Because also like he doesn't know 100% for sure how the Great Rings work. Like he's never watched it happen, like a mortal having one of the Great Rings.
Right. Like he knows what Nazgul are.
Yeah.
But like Bilbo's not one of those yet.
Right. Exactly.
So like this is maybe a little different. And also,
he comes of a long-lived family on his mother's side. Yes.
It's fine. This is just normal. He's just well preserved. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So it's still not yet going to happen for a little while that he is going to be finally confronted with the truth. Confronted with the truth at Bilbo's party, right? His confrontation with Bilbo in Bag End is where he's like, okay, this is something, and I have a really sinking feeling that I know what it is. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's at that point that has to challenge Saruman's assertion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's either a lie or Saruman's just wrong about stuff, but he's got to go find the truth on his own.
Yeah.
Because that's not working anymore.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not where he is here. So here he accepts this explanation, and it seems very convincing. And since Saruman is making it up, he doesn't have any evidence that this is how it happened, because it in fact did not happen.
Right.
It has to be a reliance on an authority that's even greater than Saruman.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely my reading of that passage in the Council of Elrond as well, because it's I mean,
you probably told us that on this podcast a few months ago.
I don't know.
Forgotten that.
I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I think that this is just right. So I love the idea. Again, not that I want to complain about the Unfinished Tales stuff, but Gandalf emerging from this council meeting, like doubting Saruman's motives concerning the ring, seems to me very difficult to square with the story that we get.
Again, the same guy who's going to say a ring of power, one of the great rings, as it clearly was. He tells stories from his current perspective.
Right.
So whoever he narrated this last White Council meeting to, he's narrating to them in Minas Tirith after the War of the Ring is over.
Right.
And everyone knows what Saruman became. And he's like, that guy, he just...
Yeah.
It was written all over him the whole time.
In retrospect, it's really obvious, right? Like I feel like an idiot now, but yeah.
Yeah. But clearly no one thought that, because he wasn't
didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and even at Elrond's council, we have people saying, "Oh, and where's Saruman? Shouldn't he be here for this?" And it's like, funny story.
Right.
About that.
Like, it was news, and it was shocking news. There wasn't anybody who was like, "I always knew that guy was gonna do something like this."
Right. Yep.
Like nobody thought that about Saruman.
Yeah.
Until Gandalf's sitting around in Minas Tirith.
Right.
Let me tell you about that one time.
Right. Yes. Okay, cool. So, that's the Sooth Barad-dûn. So as Galadriel is arriving, this is, of course,
the episode that has Sauron in it. That's why we wanted to do the ring lore.
Right. Sure. Right. That makes sense. And also Galadriel isn't necessarily going to be a big player in the ring discussion necessarily. No,
she's there. I mean, obviously she can contribute.
She doesn't have to be silent,
conversation,
but yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like
Right.
if the conversation is about what are the possibilities of what's happened to the One Ring, like if you said if that's what Gandalf's wanting to know is like what, like we know he doesn't have it, or at least we really suspect he doesn't have. We feel like we
Right.
would know if he
Right.
had
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So then where is it? She could give her 2 cents to what she thinks
Right.
about that, or how
Right.
convinced she is that he doesn't have it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the main story, she's going to do the fairy and drama stuff as well in that
Right.
episode.
Right.
So we will see Galadriel using magic power, apparently, elf magic.
Elf
Right?
magic. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good. So episode 6 then is the beginning of the summit meeting in the main story.
Yes.
Yes.
Now remind me of the split between 6 and 7. Like what happens in 6 and what happens in 7 with the summit meeting. Wait, hang on a second. 7 is Gwyndor, right?
Right.
That's the focus on Gwyndor.
That part of the story is focused on Gwyndor. So episode 6 happens mostly from Orodreth's perspective.
Okay.
And what he's going to do in this situation. Because we didn't want that to be a foregone conclusion.
Right.
That there was absolutely no way he was going to be a part of this.
Right. And 6 is a lot of like the Mythros pitch, right?
Right.
The Mythros and Fingon pitch.
Yes.
Okay. So in the frame, we have Círdan, which is delightful because Círdan is, of course, the one person who's there both times.
Yep.
Right.
Love it when that happens.
Galadriel would have been around, but now, of course, the really funny thing to do would be to give Círdan exactly the same line in the frame and in the main episode. Like, that would be hilarious. I'm not saying it'd be good. I'm saying it would be hilarious if, like, Círdan, in exactly the same tone of voice and with the same mannerisms, urged exactly the same thing in both summit meetings. That'd be funny.
And the line would be him offering.
Right. Let's build more ships. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
if he's pledging his support to Fingon, what would his support take the form of?
Right.
Ships. And using the ships to move and transport supplies and items that are necessary for this war effort. So, like, he's offering to play a role in bringing everyone together for this war.
Yeah.
So, but in the frame, Círdan is offering to facilitate their departure.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they get done talking about the ring and Saruman's like, it's gone. We don't have to worry about that. It's like, yeah, but Sauron is still a problem.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And what are we going to do about that? We could all leave.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. There seems an interesting potential tension, even dramatic irony, between Círdan's role in both of these discussions, in the frame and in the main episode. That is to say, Círdan, if we see Círdan in the main story saying, how can I, let me help, I will facilitate, I believe in this war effort and in resisting the enemy, I will put all of my resources to assist in that fight. And then in the frame, he's saying, the dark enemy has risen again. We should totally not gather all of our resources to fight. I will facilitate you all fleeing and not fighting this fight at all. Like, there's kind of like spoilers embedded in there.
Right.
Almost. Right.
That Círdan maybe got burned in the war?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Yes. We see Círdan in a very parallel situation giving strikingly different advice the second time, right? So,
Right.
As I say, there's some potential tension there within the frame in this episode.
Yeah. He's a wise guy. He learns from what happens.
Right.
Right.
But of course, like, frankly, the same tension exists in the fact that Círdan is the only one who was also there the first time, right?
Right. Yeah.
Something has happened to all of the other elves who had no reason to, die off otherwise if something hadn't happened to. But yeah.
Yeah. The more we sprinkle first stage characters throughout our frame stories, the missing ones become more and more obvious.
Right.
Yes.
You see the holes. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe something bad happens to
where
that
are the
person.
Feanorians these days? Whatever happened to them? Yeah, right. Yeah.
No third age Feanorians.
How come Elrond isn't in any of in Lord of the Rings anywhere?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe there's a reason we haven't heard of those guys. But yes. Okay. Now we get Galadriel. Of course, Galadriel was there, but she wasn't at the summit meeting. But
she's in the other storyline.
She's in Bree.
Right.
Anyway, so Galadriel is here. We have Galadriel arguing against leaving Middle Earth. What is the premise of her argument for the elves not leaving?
Well, she has her own personal reasons, and then she has like leadership reasons. And her personal reasons were like she felt like the rebellion of the Noldor wasn't really over,
right?
So much as she just survived it,
right?
And for leading Lothlorien, those elves don't want to get on ships and leave. Like her people are not.
Right.
Oh, conflict? Go west.
Right.
Elrond's people might be. Like Rivendell might be willing to pick up and get on ships.
Right.
But not Lothlorien.
Yeah.
And she's interested in fighting to preserve what she's made for all this time. Like she's got some roots put down.
Right. Is there any implication? Do we give her any kind of foresight? Because she would be a logical person. If somebody was going to say something other than, who knows what the years may reveal, what chances may come in the years to come if that, we could seize if we were still here, but if we leave, we can't, like that kind of argument. No specific prophecy of,
right. But just hey, like there's time for new things to come to light.
Yeah.
Let this play out and let's hold firm until we get there. Yeah, that seems like something that would match her viewpoint.
Yeah, but it's I think it's important because with her, it's not just like an Estelle thing only. It's also, again, back to her and Arwen, right? It's what's the point of the elves thing? What is the responsibility of the elves? Would the elves, would the flight be a retreat? I mean, would it be an act of cowardice for them to leave? Or not even cowardice necessarily, but like, would it be the wrong thing for them to be doing? Would it be like merely an abdication of their responsibility? Would it be irresponsible of the elves to leave? Is it okay for the elves to leave? Like en masse, like as a response to this sort of thing, like Sauron is rising again. Well, we're out of here. Let's go where it's safe. At the very least, there's potentially like that's a dubious moral proposition.
Yeah.
So her kind of questioning that. Now, again, she doesn't want to say to Círdan's face, right? Like elves leaving Middle-earth is an act of cowardice and no one should ever do it. Like she's not going to be anything like that strong and that would be rude.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, her own daughter is no longer in Middle-earth.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The idea of like, let's not be hasty coming into this council again, because they're not going to do anything. Right. The result of this council is going to be, all right, everybody go home. So every time someone comes up with an idea of what to do, the response of everyone else there has to be, no. Wait on that idea. Like, not yet.
Not yet.
Like everybody is very much like, no.
Yeah.
Hard to get anything done around here.
Right. Right. Exactly. You're right. This is a council where like everybody has suggestions and nobody agrees with anything anybody suggests. Right. I mean, it's kind of the way this council goes. Okay. So episode 7, then in the main story is the second half of the council. So that's Ordreth saying no, Gwyndor saying yes, Gwyndor and Finduilas having a problem with Gwyndor saying yes. right? And then Fingon
Yeah,
and
so
Maedhros being like, well, we're going forward anyway, but that was
right.
disappointing.
Yeah, so Orodreth left at the end of episode 6. And the surprise there was that Gwyndor said, I'm staying behind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Right.
when Finduilis gets all mad
Yeah.
and tries to convince him not to. She thinks she's got him talked around. And then at the very end, he's like, no, I've got to do this. So, and then at the very end of it, Fingon and Maedhros are like, well, we got some people on board, I guess. Like, this is something.
Right.
But not great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do have some interest from Doriath, which was the surprise.
Right.
Obviously, Thingol's not going to be interested, but
right. It's what you would call a minority interest from Doriath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's still better than the zero interest they were expecting.
They were assuming. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of like, well, at least Gwyndor is going to bring some elves from Nargothrond, at least some of the elves of Doriath. Like, we did something. Yeah. We've got some small support. Maybe it'll grow over time. Who knows?
Right.
Probably not. But
right. Okay.
But yeah. So it's very much like, yay, I guess.
Okay.
And then also the backdrop story with the humans is the wounding of Brondir.
Brondir. Yes.
So he gets hurt in the previous episode, and then he's being like carried home lame in this episode.
Right. This is being juxtaposed with Elrond's suggestion for making the last alliance the penultimate alliance.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The hastily named last alliance.
The last alliance, as in, the last one that we did.
That's right. Yeah, the most recent alliance.
Right.
We're not so much changing the adjective as recontextualizing it. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Back at the last alliance. The last alliance was so much fun. Let's do it again. Yes.
We've had one alliance. Yes.
Exactly.
We had second alliance.
Yeah. So, by the way, I love the note about the geriatric leaders of Gondor and Rohan at the time. That was really fun.
That was a lot of fun putting that together.
It's really fun because it's chronologically true, right?
Yes, we did not make that up.
Right. It's chronologically true, and yet also like a perfect symbol of like, well, like the human realms are kind of decrepit these days, especially compared to the last alliance, right? And yeah.
We did make up that they happened the same night, I think.
Well, yeah, so we're going to get to that part later, is that the elderly and decrepit leaders soon become the former leaders.
The former leaders, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, yes. We aren't there yet.
So so we'll have to deal with that news. But what happens here is that Gandalf showed up at this council like, all right, so we're going to like do some stuff, right? And this is him acknowledging like, oh, wait, if you wanted to ally with like Rohan and Gondor, like that's going to be tricky right now. Yeah, like I talked to their leaders and that's going nowhere anytime soon.
Right.
Like, so he's recognizing the barriers to getting that going. Like he likes the idea. He's not against it. He's voicing this is what's going to have to get fixed before we can make that happen.
Right. So basically this is the place where it is recognized that gathering together a union of allies in order to fight the war is not really going to work here. That the options for that are very, very limited. And so that's what's being paralleled with the rather anticlimactic end of the summit meeting in episode 7.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Which means, by the way, that Elrond's call for action and his own like voiced preference for fighting in its way kind of echoes Gwyndor from the main storyline itself, which is an intriguing kind of parallel actually. Like it's not a parallel I'd lean heavily into, but again, like within the episode, there's a kind of similarity there.
Yeah, I think I was thinking he would be more the Beleg Mablung side of things, but it's not unlike Gwendor, because the difference with Gwendor is he is so convinced that he has to do it,
Right.
and that's not part of
Elrond is not expressing
yeah.
a personal vendetta,
right?
So that element of the
although
Gwendor
one of
story
his
is not.
Yeah, I mean, one of his sons could. His sons are good at vendettas.
Yes.
So he's like, I know 2 guys who will totally fight this war.
Right, exactly. So we do have a nest egg for an alliance. We just need to. It needs to catch on. Right. Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
okay.
That's great.
Episode 8 then is let's see, in the main story, episode 8 is That's Not the Death of Lilith. That's episode 9, right?
Yeah.
No, she's born in 8.
Right.
So
that's the laughter episode, isn't it?
Yes. We named the episode Laughter. So everyone's like, oh no. And it's like, no, it's happy. She's just running around like a little toddler. It's all cute.
Right.
And then the next episode is called The Death of Laughter. So yes, we do make it all terrible in episode 9. But episode 8 is not that. Episode 8
this is like the happy time with like Huan and Morwen are doing pretty well here.
Yeah. They've got the cute little kids running around. Huor and Rian are going to get married. So the Dor Loman storyline is like idyllic. As far as being in the middle of a country planning for a war.
Right.
Preparing for a war, I mean. And then the Eastern storyline is what dominates the episode. So we have the Men of Bree crossing the mountains in this episode, and we introduce Bor.
Right.
So Bor is introduced in the episode named Laughter as well.
Yes.
So Bor and Lilith are the 2 main characters who are bringing the personality to the episode.
Right.
And then the dwarves of Belagast are also this episode. So they're less prone to laughter, but still part of the, hey, we think we should join the alliance. So that everything's kind of coming together in the main storyline in episode 8.
Okay. In the frame, we have Celeborn saying unpleasant things about dwarves and expressing uncertainty. So we don't have any happiness going on here. But it begins to sound like... so we've had the discussion about the rings, and that concluded decisively with Saruman saying his piece and convincing everybody that they didn't need to worry about that. We've then subsequently had 2, both very logical suggestions of what the alternatives are. We leave Middle-earth or we stay and fight. And both of those have been kind of individually, if not absolutely, rejected. We're not pushing forward wholeheartedly with either one. There are good reasons to resist or to hold off on any firm conclusions in those directions. So 8 is like what? Celeborn saying, in fact, like we shouldn't do anything?
Right. So if the let's flee is the flight response, and then the last alliance again was the fight response, that was like, okay, the other option is insularity. You go home and you stay there and you defend your land and you don't really connect with everybody else. And that is a sentiment that is definitely present among the dwarves who aren't really sure about whether or not they should be part of what the elves are planning, and among the men of Sooth Baradin, who are somewhat on board with this expedition, but not necessarily wholeheartedly. Like there's definitely still some doubts as to whether or not this is a good plan and is going to work out. So the idea was if you reject fight or flight and you just
hide is the other option.
This is a
ford up, basically.
Yes, exactly. If it needs to start with an F, fort would probably be good. But I was thinking insularity as the concept.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just Celeborn being like, dwarves. I hate dwarves. It's well, if we're not leaving and if we're not fighting, then I'm going to go home and not deal with other people.
Yeah.
That seems to be what we're getting at here.
Right. Interesting. Yes, I'm thinking about like the kind of tension between that frame and its episode, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think I like, actually, like, especially since this is the cheerful, happy golden age moments in, the golden moments in Dorloman, right? What we're seeing in episode 8 is what they're gonna lose by like not staying there, right? Like they're all gonna go out and they're all gonna die, and the golden happy moments of Dorloman will be shattered forever. That's going to be happening in the near future. Right. And in the midst of that, in the midst of this last happiness, which they're prepared to risk, and we know they're in fact going to lose, we have Celeborn saying, I think the smartest thing is to go back home and defend what you've got, right? Instead of doing what Hurin is planning to do, or yeah.
And I don't recall what we had come up with as far as like who's bringing up what and how we get to him talking about this. So I just don't remember now. But the idea would be that if someone's like, well, we can't ally with men because their kingdoms aren't ready to fight right now. It's like, well, maybe we can round up some dwarves, I guess, would be the next suggestion. And so his idea is like, stop with the alliances. Let's consider something else. So he's not just being, again, I hate dwarves.
Right.
Because
I would just like the minutes to represent the fact that I don't trust dwarves. Can I get that in the minutes, please?
Like, it didn't come out. It should not be coming out of nowhere.
Right.
But, I don't know who would have. I don't know who at this meeting would have been bringing up the dwarves.
Right.
To start with.
So it would have been a natural enough transition where like they're like men and they're like, well, that's not going to work out. And someone's like, well, what about the dwarves? And Celeborn's like, ixnay on the dwarves. Like, let's not even go there. Yeah.
Right.
And since we can't go there and we can't go, then the best option is fording up. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Which of course is also in pleasant tension with the dwarves coming in episode 8 as well. Pleasant because it seems to be hinting at a future that will not in fact happen, right? The dwarves are not not immediately anyway. The dwarves who are approaching them and who are joining them in this alliance are not in fact going to disappoint them in season 7. So
these dwarves do their job.
These dwarves do their job. Yeah, exactly.
They do everything asked of them and more.
Yes, exactly. But again, it creates a viewer's suspicion that this is foreshadowing of the dwarves betraying them later on, which of course won't happen. Yeah. Okay, then episode 9 is the death of Lilith, and no, the dragon
the plague.
It's the plague, right? Oh yeah, the plague, right? The plague. The plague breaks out in the camp as well, and
in the east they're planning the expedition that's going to be in 10. So we are spending time there. The idea is to build up the relationship between Ulfang and the elves that he's met who aren't Galadriel, because he only knew Galadriel. Before they got here.
This is after their arrival. So episode 8 is the one where Ulfang stands between Uldor and the cliff edge. That made me so nervous. Yes. Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
That's 8.
Right.
So in 9, Ulfang is like attending councils and planning things with Mithros and stuff. So he's starting to get a much
impressed by
better...
Himring and all that.
Yeah, he's getting a much better picture of who he's formed an alliance with, and obviously Ulfang gets on board with it. But so that's basically the storyline. There is Ulfang meets elves who are not Galadriel, and he's suddenly okay with elves.
Right.
Only person in history to have ever had that experience. Everyone everyone else is like, wow, Galadriel is so amazing. And all things like, I don't know about you, Galadriel, but
the
these
Feanorians, they're awesome.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean,
I
they
now
make
trust elves
sense to him.
implicitly, having met
They make
Caronte.
sense to him in ways
Yeah.
that Galadriel
No,
just
absolutely,
doesn't.
absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the story does make sense.
It
It's
does.
just a little
It
amusing.
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, in some we're making fun of our own story a little bit in summarizing it, but yes, yeah, it does make sense. And this is where the news of the deaths come in. So this is where we were sort of leaning on the coincidence of the timing of their deaths a little bit, right?
Right.
Yes, so it's in the Tale of Years that this last White Council meeting happens the same year that the elderly king of Rohan and the elderly steward of Gondor die.
Yes.
And the fact that it's all called out there, it's like, well, must be significant, must be part of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we wanted to imply that something scary and ominous happened.
Or at least
when old men die.
Exactly. Very aged people died suddenly? Like, you're kidding me.
Yeah, I think one of them was like 98 years old. I forget. I mean, they're old.
They're old.
In the story.
Old. Yeah. Yeah. But in the context here, especially in the context of having just very recently discussed this suggestion of allying with Gondor and Rohan, it seems a little bit insidious, right? And they've got to, suspect, like, is Sauron doing something? Does this, does this mean that they're in, are Rohan and Gondor compromised in some way, or, either compromised or at least like under some kind of assault, right? And again, the juxtaposition with the plague, I really like, right? Because that too is like the breath of Morgoth, right? Is that, what's up with that? And, more is guessed than is known about those things. And that's just where the White Council would be right now. I mean, Sauron has come back. What does that mean? What is that going to look like? I mean, goodness, like, who is Sauron now? Like, the black spaghetti monster of Rings of Power season 2 was a kind of odd answer to the question, but the question of what does it mean for Sauron to be killed and then slowly regain his power over time? Like, what is that process? What does that do? Like, not only do you look the same afterwards, but would Sauron's friends recognize him? I mean, like, what does it even mean? Who is this guy? What is he doing? What is the dangers? What are the plans? Like, there's so much that they don't know about this whole situation. So hearing news like this, right? The King of Gondor, King of Rohan, both just dropped dead. Like, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's not nothing, right? Who is Sauron? What can he do? How strong is he? And what could his plans be? Are all things that they would be wildly guessing at.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now Elrond, he is excited about this particularly in the frame.
Well, I mean, excited might be the wrong word, but
maybe the wrong word.
He's looking for some indication of what's the sign, what's the time, what's the right course of action. And maybe if he thinks Aragorn is supposed to go reclaim the throne of Gondor,
right,
the steward dropping dead means like, hey, maybe they're looking for you to show
Sounds
up
like
and
there's a
do
leadership
thing.
void in Minas Tirith these days, Aragorn. Hey, didn't I say you were, your hour is coming? Like, maybe your hour is now.
Yeah. So he's gonna investigate that, be like, okay, what does this mean? And not just for Gondor, but for this guy in particular.
Yeah.
And he wants to know where Aragorn is on that.
So is this the episode where Aragorn comes in and responds about that?
Is that the next one? I forget.
Might be the
You're the
next
one
one.
looking
Oh,
at the
it's the
screen,
next one.
not
the
me.
next one.
I'm
Okay.
like, I don't know.
In episode 10
So,
then.
but-
So episode 10 is the Glaurung episode. Glaurung,
Yes.
Maedhros, the dwarves.
Yeah.
Elrond offers Aragorn the opportunity to be part of an attack against Mordor. Aragorn declines. So what we're saying is that in our version of Aragorn's character, he's turned away from that path long ago.
At this time, yes.
Okay. Okay.
He turns towards it
Later.
And
Right.
prior to the events so what we're doing here is, I mean, we've talked about this a number of times, is what we're essentially doing is we're giving, like, Jackson's not wrong in saying that
Aragorn had chances and has never done it. Yeah.
Right. And so we're doing that.
Yeah.
And we're giving him that while still saying, but not by the Council of Elrond, he's not.
No. Yeah, exactly. By then, certainly no. And also there's a difference between, like, I don't want to be king because I believe that all humans are, like, ontologically too weak to. I mean, there's, like, way heavier stuff that Jackson is leaning into there that we certainly don't have to lean into. It's simply like, so he says he's not ready, right? Like, it's basically he's saying the time is not now.
Yeah, he wants to do this the right way, and a death in Gondor doesn't mean that, like, he's the guy and he's ready for it. He's looking at the fact that he's only been hanging out with the Dunedain for, like, I don't know, at most a year now, and he can try to learn how to lead them,
right?
But he's not an expert at his brand new job yet.
Yeah.
And his brand new job is being responsible for a handful of guys in the wilderness, not the entire kingdom of Gondor.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm still sorting out, like, chieftain kind of levels of.
I just got promoted to shift manager. I'm really not sure I'm ready for CEO yet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's looking at this going, I'm not there. I'm not that guy. And I recognize that you don't, like, work your way up to be king. That's not how that works.
No, but I mean, of course, like, we have good textual reason to believe that Aragorn thought that, as, like, the whole Thorongil, situation shows him training himself.
Right, because even if you don't work your way up to the kingship, if you're designated from birth to be the guy who will someday be, then you are raised and trained for that.
Yes.
So Aragorn's like, gotta train myself.
Yeah.
He's taking responsibility for the role, not just, like, sitting there and waiting for the role to fall in his lap.
Right.
So
I also love the fact that giving Aragorn this speech is at least feels like a functional reversal of Húrin in episode 1. Right? Like, the elves bringing in this human and being like, okay, human, are you ready to seize the day and make a difference while you can? And he's like, no, I need to wait for many more decades before that's time. Like, this, it's a really interesting, I mean, what it shows is that Aragorn isn't Húrin, right?
Right.
He's not in the same situation.
And I mean, he's not trapped in Gondolin. And also, unlike Húrin, he was raised by elves.
Yes, he has the elvish perspective, and also with his Númenorian heritage is, like, vaguely elvish himself, in the sense that his time is much less limited than Húrin's time was.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they are different characters with different perspectives. But it is true that there's not a lot of human mortal perspectives at this council. Again, who brought up the dwarves, I'm not really sure who would want to be talking about dwarves. So I had to guess Gandalf, the person who hangs out with dwarves in our show at this point. Like, he seems to be the likely person.
Right. Galadriel, theoretically, but then you get
Yes,
this
we know
awkward
she's-
tension between her and Celeborn, which maybe we would.
Yeah, if the two of them start like bickering
Right.
at each other about whether or not they should go home right now, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
nobody else wanted to be at that dinner party.
No, nobody wants to be there. I agree. Yeah. No, Gandalf makes more sense in that regard. But anyway, I really like this. Now the juxtaposition. The juxtaposition seems to be the juxtaposition that, I mean, not all frame and episode pairings juxtapose particular characters necessarily, but some of them do. This one feels like it juxtaposes Aragorn and Mythros, basically. This is the episode in which Mythros is stepping in and being like, leave the dragon to me, right? I will take the lead. I'm going to step in. And this is, and so the juxtaposition suggests like a contrast, right?
Yes.
Mythros is ready in every way, right? Like it is time and past time. Like the time is now and only now. And Mythros is ready to risk and lose everything for the sake of achieving this. Whereas Aragorn, it shows how Aragorn is like, it makes it easier even to sort of accept still quite young Aragorn, you know, saying like, I'm not there, right? I don't have that yet. Yeah, kind of like that. Okay, then episode 11, our first battle scene. So this is Gwyndor's charge.
Yes.
Gwyndor's charge, and then the near disaster. Well, the beginning of the eventual disaster, right, on the Western front, and we don't see the Eastern front at all. So this is just the Western front side,
correct,
of the first half of the battle, and we get Elrond explaining to Arwen that the plan is to watch and wait. So this is Elrond and Arwen discussing it afterwards because Arwen wasn't there.
Right. So the conversation between Elrond and Aragorn was confidential because Aragorn was going to actually get a choice in the matter. If Elrond brings that up in front of other people,
harder for him
maybe
to say
not going to be
Right. Yeah.
So he did have a private conversation, but now he has to go back to Arwen and be like, right, so just kidding, no battle.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the plan is to do nothing, and nothing, in fact, was decided at the council meeting, really at all. And Arwen's like, you guys did a bad job at this council, right? And so,
she's frustrated.
She wants action.
You're tasked with defending Middle-earth.
Right. Yeah. And this is where she goes to her brothers to be like, surely you will join me in like getting on Dad's case about not doing anything, right? Now, why are they not interested in doing anything?
Well, them and what army?
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Like they're happy to kill orcs,
right?
But what's the plan here? Like
they're
Arwen
vengeful but not
doesn't have-
suicidal. Yes.
Right. Arwen doesn't have a plan.
Yeah.
She's wanting to do something. And if the council where everyone sat around and talked about what you could do didn't come up with a plan, Elladan and Elrond here aren't like, you know what we have? A plan.
Right. So this is really interesting then. Where Arwen is left, big picture here, because this is the end of Arwen and Arwen's contributions here. So where Arwen is, we've just emphasized that Arwen's views have changed, right? Arwen is now like, yes, we have a role to play here in Middle-earth. And so she comes to this, she accompanies Elrond to this meeting, and it's like, great, okay. Surely out of this meeting shall come what we're going to do in Middle-earth.
Yes.
Right? Like our role in Middle-earth shall be made clear at this meeting. This is going to be awesome. And then it doesn't happen. So where we see is her being like, something must be done. But apparently that answer is not going to come from the elves, right? Like the people the leaders that she looks up to, her dad, Galadriel, even the Istari, right? Like the White Council has no Círdan. They have no plan, right? And so she's like, where is the plan going to come from? Like, where's and she already gave the answer to this question, right, in her conversation with Galadriel when she was talking about the Dunedain, right? Yeah. So you can begin to see how like this sort of seed is growing that if something is going to be done, that Aragorn is the path forward, right? Is going to end up being the only path forward. She will eventually see that Aragorn's path is the path forward, and that it is not with her father and Galadriel and Círdan and everybody that she's going to be joining in order to fight the good fight. It's with Aragorn that she's going to need to join in order to fight the good fight.
Yes.
I like that. I like it. So just her ending frustrated and realizing that some change needs to happen, like that something, some new plan, quite different and quite out of the, like the old ways and policies have failed, right? The White Council couldn't decide anything to do.
Right.
Then episode 12. Episode 12 is the Eastern Front, the murder of Ulfang and the decision to do the treachery, though not yet the actual performance of the treachery.
Right.
So we're talking about fording up, basically.
That seems to be where they ended, right?
Yeah.
Was the
only viable suggestion was the fording up suggestion, which is like the default. That's what doing nothing looks like, essentially.
Right. That's kind of what they all did already. They all have.
Yeah.
They already all have forts.
Right. Yeah.
Except for Gandalf.
Right. It's true. Gandalf is the only fortless member of the. I mean, Círdan, to be fair, doesn't have an awesome fort, but you know, by geography,
he's got a harbor full of ships.
Yeah.
He could just, leave.
Right.
He could pull the Neglarest,
Yes.
Mm.
Yes,
for those who remember season 4.
He has shown himself hard to pin down in times past. When you can only get on a boat and you're the only navy, you can get away usually. Yes. Yes. Okay. Now, the treachery talk. That seems like for them to actually talk about treachery, and we better make sure that treachery doesn't come from within, seems to sail a little bit close to the wind as far as the Saruman stuff is concerned.
Right.
Now, obviously, we have the juxtaposition with the treachery in the main episode, like the treachery unfolding within the main episode. So it's not, I mean, it's going to be on the mind of the viewers, right?
Yeah.
Why would it be on the mind of the actors in the frame?
Because it's always like, this is always something that's possible. Like Saruman still has, at least a bargain basement version of the spell of bottomless dread in his pocket, and he still can do this thing. It's worth being aware of. Not to mention, he's perfectly happy to send people out to, go try to give away rings and, in exchange for information or aid or whatever. So you can't necessarily count out the possibility that one of your allies may turn out to, in fact, not be one.
Right.
And of course, Saruman is quick to throw the scent off of him. Like, remember, you remember that time that you brought like 1 million dudes over across the mountains and they turned to all be bad guys, Galadriel?
Right. Do you remember when you personally caused the defeat of the armies of the elves at the... I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No big deal.
But the idea of treachery is obviously always a problem. But if your plan is ford up and wait for some opportunity to come later, you don't know how long you're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities for a betrayal to get in the way of that plan are more serious there
Yes.
than if they had come up with a plan and we're like, we're doing a thing now.
Yeah.
We can probably keep that safe from betrayal because it's now.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have to wait 100 years, what are the chances that no one
Right.
in that time is going to somehow...
But at the same time, if you're all fording up, then you're least exposed to danger from the treachery, right? You know,
right, which is, it reinforces the concept.
Right.
Yeah.
But
also, nobody knew, for example, that Denethor was as compromised as he was. I mean, nobody knew that Saruman was as compromised as he was either.
Right.
But in the end, Saruman, Theoden, Denethor, all compromised. Like these were key players in the most critical region, and treachery happened right under everybody's noses, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like the problem is that you could have treachery happening for thousands of years and you don't find out about it until the moment that it needs to you need to know about it most.
Yes. The Mygwin story. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're the title of the episode is The Fear of Treachery, right? The fear of betrayal. So if you're going with the fording up option, there is some inherent fear in that position. Like that uncertainty of what could go wrong here is, I mean, you don't retreat into a bunker if you're not afraid of things.
Right. Right. Yeah. I would think also, by the way, if we think back about with Saruman for a second, Saruman doesn't want this to land close to himself. But at the same time, everybody leaving, deciding to do nothing and fording up has got to be his preferred outcome.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Yes. Yeah. And because in particular, like after he just rolled the dice the way he just rolled the dice, he has to want and plan for there never to be a White Council meeting ever again. Right? I mean, like he can't want to ever be in the same room with these people. Again.
Right.
Because I mean, he's escaped exposure this time. He knows that he like rolled the dice. I mean, he played a dangerous game and won a throw, right? But he can't be confident that would happen again.
Right.
And so everybody like, okay, let's everybody stick to themselves and mind only what they themselves are doing and leave everybody else to their own devices. Sounds like a great plan to him. Right.
Right.
Yes. Right. And also, can we all agree not to look inside each other's forts at all? Right. Like let's do that. I wonder if Saruman wouldn't be the one to bring up treachery.
Yeah. Very well could be.
You know, just to yeah. I mean,
again, it's about the fear more than the treachery at this point.
Yes, because to sort of sow fear is what I think would also serve his ends, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's like, you know, if you've ever played Mafia or Werewolf, which is the newer version of the game, like it's one of the first things you do when you're the bad guys is you like, so Jim, what's your deal? Like, why are you so sus, man? You know?
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
I felt so old just now saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, so say Among Us, and then don't say Werewolf and Mafia, and that'll be a more recent reference. It's still true. 4 years old. It's still a 4-year-old reference, but it counts as
still
more
ancient
recent.
history. But yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, cool. No, I think that makes sense. And then episode 13, of course, our final episode, everybody dies. And this is where we lean into hope. This is where we lean
But not everyone really lives.
Also true. Anyway, so this is where Elrond and Aragorn are discussing hope. right? And so we end with Elrond reflecting on Eregion, right?
Right.
And how Eregion led to Imladris.
Yes. Specifically, that if we brought up earlier about the ruins, what came of those ruins,
right?
And that's the part that didn't come up before and needs to come up here. And especially if they were just talking about forting up, his fort is Imladris.
Right. And of course it is, I love the idea, by the way, of drawing gentle attention to the fact that, having all decided that the best thing they can do with the rise of Sauron is fort up, they're having this conversation in the ruins of one of the greatest, biggest forts in Middle-earth history. I mean, like, it's, which Sauron overcame.
I can't wait to tell the story of that siege battle. That should be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, yeah. So it's first of all, I really kind of like that, kind of pointing to the futility of the thing. But also, of course, emphasizing, Elrond's turning of it to show how hope comes, right? How Estel was born, how the fall of Eregion leads to the founding of Imladris, and that, hope survives and is ever there, which is hope survives is a good message to make sure people are taking away from that final episode, right? As of course we have it there, day shall come again, and Huor's prophecy and all that stuff. But of course, people watching this and experiencing it for the first time could very well feel a little bit overwhelmed by the horror and grief of everybody dying.
And miss out on that little hope message that was... Yeah,
exactly. So having Elrond kind of lay that out a little bit more clearly at the very end seems like an excellent solution. Yeah. Cool.
And it could be Aragorn expressing some doubt, like, hey, I didn't mean to leave you guys all in the lurch. Like, I didn't mean to say no one should do anything. I just meant I wasn't quite ready yet. And Elrond's like, there'll be a time. Like, we're gonna something will make itself known. We'll figure out when the time is, when the day is.
No, it's good. It's good. Well, this is a really challenging frame in a lot of ways, because it isn't like a story. I mean, to use the classic example of, we have the two paradigmatic frames, right? The one which had the awesome, exciting story, the Gandalf in Harad frame. And then we had like the paradigmatic non-story frame of Arwen sitting around talking to people in season 2, right? And this one is definitely leaning towards the Arwen end of the spectrum, or at least risking that.
Yes.
Though, unlike that one and several other of our frames, we at least have like an actual event of Third Age history that this is connected to, this last council. So there's a certain amount of just kind of interest in sort of showing that and thinking about that. Not to mention, as I was talking about at the beginning of our discussion, the sort of appealing parallels between this meeting and the Council of Elrond as well. But anyway, so it's challenging, but I think I love the ideas that you guys had here. I think that it holds together really well, and connects through, not like slavishly, it's always I think a risk and temptation with the frame is to have the parallels be too close and too on the nose, right?
Right, because we get to make up a lot of what happens in the frame. So it would be very easy to be like, you know what? He should do the exact same thing as the guy in the story.
Exactly.
For no reason. Which is a little bit of the Elrond, like, maybe we should fight. Like, that does seem a little out of character for Elrond.
But it's
But he's trying to see, is now the time to be doing something. He's trying to plan his course of action, so he can make other people go fight. He's not going to do it. Right.
But like, it was interesting because I it's one of the reasons that I was asking before we started going through, the whole frame about the Aragorn and Arwen thing, right? Because it would be really tempting to be like, well, we've got, Hur and Rion doing their cute romance thing. We've got Morwen and Hurin doing their less cute, but like more mature, more political romance thing going on. Like both of those could kind of play off Aragorn and Arwen if we gave them a little, little second conversation here, or whatever. Anyway, the point is I can see the temptation to do that. Right. But I think it's really great that you resisted that temptation. I think that's excellent. Not only is it a great thing to do for the Aragorn and Arwen story itself, as I said before, but I think it handles the frame concept much better to resist being quite so on the nose as that. Anyway, so I really the balancing those two things when you've got something as non-action sequence oriented as this frame is, to resist the temptation to just have it be sort of too on the nose and too directly parallel, reflecting the themes and ideas and events, even to some extent or on some scale of what's going on in that episode. So yeah, I like it. That was great.
Nice.
I think that works really well.
Awesome.
Very cool. Sorry. Now this is me like in my brain, trying to get my brain to stop going back to thinking about future frame season combinations.
Yep.
That's what I was just like, but we're not going there. There will be time for that discussion in season 8. When we return to the frame question there, we can at least, if not lay out a full outline, we can throw out some strong candidates. It's definitely time to review, like, what are the third age things that we do definitely want to include somewhere or other as frames, and can we make that work in a chronological order and everything else. So there will be time, but it is not this night because it is late enough already, I think. And speaking of being late, we are now very late in the season. We have one more episode, one more session here for season 7. And by the way, for people who are sort of new to this, we don't call episodes of the SilmFilm project episodes because we want to be clear in our nomenclature. We're talking about episodes. When we talk about episodes in the context of this show, we're talking about episodes of our theoretical show, right? And so, it's like we got to a place where we were like, it's episode 10 where we talk about episode 4, and it's just like, it was way too confusing. So we always refer to sessions of the SilmFilm project.
That's what this is.
That's what this is. And the episodes are episodes for the show. So just to explain, that's why we try to be consistent in that nomenclature. But in our final session for season 7, that will be just next week. So I had to postpone this past week because of my travel to Mountain Moot. So we were going to do last week and then next week, but I had to shift last week to this week, but we're sticking with June 12th. So 1 week from today, we will get together with Phil, and listen to some more so
excited.
Not only as he's going to, we'll talk about some season 7 stuff, but also still some more Baron and Luthien stuff, right?
Yeah. He's still working through season. We did give him a few tall orders, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, season 6 is like, I'm
not going to call it a musical.
Right. No, but I mean, you could say, like, seriously, season 6 of SilmFilm could give some composers an entire career's worth of work, right? So having Phil not do that all in one season is perfectly acceptable and perfectly fine.
Yes.
But yeah, so we will talk about stuff. It's always so much fun to talk to Phil. So I'm excited to hear some of the stuff that he's come up with here for season 7, and to hear more of the Baron and Luthien stuff. So we will see everybody in 1 week, not 2. And then after that comes Mythmoot, and then we're probably gonna have a bit of a hiatus. We often have a little bit of a hiatus in between seasons, so we'll probably have a between seasons break after Mythmoot. But don't forget to join us at Mythmoot. You can at least sign up for Moot Hub if you can't make it in person, and then you can be there live for our performance of the Hurin and Morwen story from season 7, right?
We have actually 3 things going on at Mythmoot this year, which is unusual. We have the casting session, which
for people to sign up for reading roles. Yeah.
Right. We have the actual presentation, and then we're doing a Birds of the Feather discussion about season 7 to kind of talk through more stuff, because we always find like at least a few people at Mythmoot who have just caught up.
Yes.
Just recently.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Our sessions at Mythmoot, which we call Birds of a Feather sessions, are just sort of opportunities for people who are like all like interested in a particular thing, like who all share a particular interest, to be able to get together and talk about it. So we're doing a SilmFilm one this year.
Yep. So
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm not sure, I don't remember if the schedule they're making for me at Mythmoot is going to accommodate my being able to come to the casting episode. In which case, last time that happened, I got cast as a drunk elf. So,
Yes. It could be worse. You were once cast as a dog. So
that's worse. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Portraying a Huon was the pinnacle of my thespionic career.
There you go.
And also, to clarify, you were not a drunk elf. You were a drunken youth.
I was a drunken youth.
That's right.
In Nargothrond. Of the House of Beor. You were
objecting to elves. That's true. Yeah.
Yes.
That's true. I was a drunken human teenager.
Which means that your character was at the last stand of Bregor, I think it is, in Lajros, fighting Glaurung as everybody else was leaving.
That's right. That's right.
As an older man.
Yes. Probably wishing he were not less drunk than he was in the previous in his earlier appearance.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Very good. All right. So I look forward to next week. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Nick and Marie, for your wonderful work and the work of everybody else who attended the discussion and participated in making all this happen, and for everybody else's thoughts and ideas and suggestions on the discussion boards as well, for everybody who attended. And I will say, see you guys next time. Thanks for listening, and Godspeed.